Hi, everyone, and great to have you with us in this webinar with Future Transforum Foundation Innovation Bank Inter. And I am Alper Utku, and I'm leading European Leadership University. That's a university built to address skills gap. And so today, what I would like to talk with you about is the upskilling and reskilling to prepare our workforce for the future. So I think you can see my screen. We've few years ago, our friends in Amsterdam, they've done a video which is showing what was going to happen in next 3 years. And actually, this video was like a prophecy, and we've seen all of that happen, and really accelerated with the pandemic. So let me share this.
If you're watching this, you're among the 3% of people that understand that the future of work is going to look very different from what it is now. So keep watching. Let's see where we're heading. It's also exciting, right? Siri will recognize your voice even if you're 5 meters away from your phone. That new chatbot feels totally real. Self-driving cars are no longer fiction. You can analyze your DNA. You tried flying that drone for the first time, and you're thinking of buying a smart speaker to make your life so much easier. A few years from now, and that's something like 3 years, not 30, artificial intelligence, robotics, machine learning, mass 3D printing, biotechnology, chatbots, virtual reality, deep learning, drones, augmented reality, smart objects will all be deeply enrooted in our everyday lives, just like computers, phones, or electricity are for us today. Oh well, is this really going to happen? And if it does, you'll adapt when the time comes, right? Life is good. You love your job. You've been working for this established company for a few years. You're comfortable in your position. You know what you're good at. People like you. And that last presentation you gave got you some amazing reactions. You're safe with your company. Meantime, you see an article or two speculating on the future of jobs. McKinsey published a report stating that 45% of all current tasks could be automated with present technology. The World Economic Forum estimates that 33% of jobs in 2020 don't even exist yet. But what do they know, right? You've got time. Oh, look, the supermarket just introduced self-cashier machine. You're at the airport checking in luggage. What the heck happened to all the real people at the check-in desk? Gone, replaced by machines. But it's only the low-skilled jobs, right? Nope, think again. In 2012, there were 150,000 humans working on Wall Street. 3 years later, automation has cut that number down to 100,000. That's 1/3 gone. But it's only the mathematical and scientific jobs, right? Nope, think again. This Japanese insurance company, Fukuoka Mutual Life Insurance, is already replacing all its human insurance claim workers with an AI system that will handle customers more efficiently. See these articles? They're written by algorithms, and we can't tell the difference with human written content. And thinking of converting yourself to being an online poker player? Too late. There's an AI that can already beat humans at it. Most journalists, tax consultants, marketeers, technicians, knowledge workers, lawyers, even the person editing this video right now will to some extent have been impacted or automated by technology in a couple of years. And what have you been doing? Probably watching Netflix. And the problem is the machines don't wait. And the machines, they don't watch Netflix.
So when our friends in Growth Tribe in Amsterdam did this video 3 years ago, most of us were watching this like science fiction. But with the technology change accelerated by the pandemic, we have this huge dramatic moment in our history, which kind of gives us a completely different jobs landscape. And if you look at the reports from World Economic Forums and McKinsey's, we have so many new emerging jobs and so many traditional jobs are declining. So what does it say to us? So it says to us, I think we have to bring a new repertoire of skills. And we call this, or we talk about this in two types of terminologies. One is upskilling and the other one is reskilling. And I'm sure you're hearing this quite often. So what I understand from upskilling is you are still keeping your job. You're in the same job, same role, but you need new skills in that job to do it better. But reskilling is really your job disappears, or you go and move to a new job and role, and you need a completely new set of skills. And today, what is needed more than anything that we need to upskill and reskill ourselves, our people, our organizations. And reskilling is actually really giving a big reset to our skill set. And if you look at the reports from World Economic Forum again, I think 50% of the all employees by 2025 will need reskilling. I think this percentage will be even bigger with the pace of change we're going right now. And I want to share with you a video from Hidden Figures that actually is a great story about reskilling, upskilling. I hope you've seen the movie
the
Hidden
IBM
Figures.
7090 data processing system. It has the capability of solving over 24,000 multiplications per second.
Holy Moses, that's lightning fast.
They'll never get that to work. It'll run eventually. And when it does, we have to know how to program it. Unless you'd rather be out of a job. No.
Mr. Z, I got a court date.
Computer uses it as its high-speed storage unit and information holding device. You have a brain. That I can work with. That's in the wrong spot.
So Hidden Figures, it talks about African American women working at NASA. They are at that time computers. They compute the mathematical formulas to put the rockets onto on the orbits. And at their time, NASA invests in IBM computers, and they are actually out of their jobs because the machines are doing their job. And what do? They reskill. You know, when the computers take the job of the computers in NASA, the old computers, the ladies, they learn how to code, how to program, and they reskill themselves and they get their new job. It's a fascinating movie about reskilling, and I really invite you to see it if you haven't already. So I think the machines are our new co-workers. I say that because, right, as we see, you know, currently around 50% of the tasks are already done by machines, like 47% of the tasks, but 37% of the tasks are done by machines. But in 3 to 4 years, this percentage will increase 30% by itself. So, you know, almost 50% of the jobs will be taken care of by machines. And what will happen is machines are the new worker, new co-worker, and we will need to learn how to work with machines. And so the traditional supervisor in the factories or in the traditional production places are being replaced by machine learning engineers. If you haven't heard this terminology, just be familiar with it. This is the future supervisor that's going to lead the future worker, which is the machines, and the code is the production line. And the data scientist is the future manager, so which manages all these algorithms and codes for for better results. So we can see from the research here that, you know, most of the tasks, the cognitive tasks, are being replaced and taken over by machines in the next 5 years, in detail to the slides that I shared. And that tells us that we need, as human beings, we need to bring on a different set of skills. I call them meta skills that will make us superior to machines, and actually what I call, you know, help us to achieve our superhuman potential. And these skills are, you know, more on the analytical side, the reflective side, and sense making, critical thinking. So that will put us ahead of the machines until the machines are smarter when we have the super AI. So, but then people ask me, how do we build skills? How do we reskill? How do we, how do we upskill? I think it doesn't happen, unfortunately, with one online course. It doesn't happen with a MOOC. I mean, you need time. You need time and you need practice, because building skills, building capabilities are not individual things and are not cognitive things only. They are contextual, they are experiential, and you need a social environment to practice these skills. So if you want to learn a new skill and turn it into a capability, try to bring that into your working environment. Try to practice it with your co-workers, and this is the best way of building a skill. So because if you're thinking you're going to listen to a lecture and learn a new skill, no, that's just knowledge, that's just awareness. And this is what we do actually in our university. We have programs to build developing machine learning engineers, data scientists, and software engineers, and we combine digital learning, workshops, experiential learning, projects and assignments, and action learning, and also leadership skills all together to build the future tech professional who are high tech and high touch. So they can, work with machines, they can work with human, they can work with people. So I think that's the formula of success for the future. And I think I also get the question from organizations, companies. So how do we make it work in our organizations? I think one of the starting steps that we see in many organizations in the face of digital transformation, technology revolution, is the digital transformation. So the companies invest a lot of time and resources on digital transformation. And that also gives hope to us in the companies that when we have these digital transformation initiatives, I think we solve part of the technology adaptation problem. But it doesn't stop here, because the digital transformation actually makes the issue of reskilling and upskilling even bigger. And I think the biggest challenge in the digital transformation is, how do we empower the whole organization? How do we enable them with towards these new technologies, and how do we bring these skills to life, and how do we create a culture of skills? So my experience with working a number of large organizations in terms of reskilling and upskilling, actually the culture comes first. Developing a set of rituals and psychological safety and the mindset. Then the digital comes second. So that is, I think, a critical message that I want to share with you. So in summary, what I see is, for future-proof reskilling and upskilling, we need a number of things. I think we need, first of all, I think we need to be aware that we have to shift our mindset. So we should go towards a growth mindset. So that comes with learning agility and courage to build new capabilities. And we should also embrace new practices like agile that will enable us to, empower the whole organization. And we see the third item in the face of the pandemic, we need to redefine work and the workplace. So we are now seeing that you can work anywhere, learn anywhere. And I think that brings a totally different type of work style and leadership approach. And finally, I think we are in the age of AI, and that is also, it's actually going beyond that. And so if you're thinking that you're ready for the age of AI, I think we should be even prepared for what is beyond, which is the world of distributed ledger technologies as we popularly know it, the blockchain revolution. That's the next stage. So I think it's never too late to get ourselves and our organizations and ready for the future. So in a nutshell, I think we're going through times of radical change. We need reskilling at scale. And developing these skills into capabilities will take time and will take effort. And we need a full stack approach to build such skills rather than, just a single-sided learning strategy, which is where the learning is not an individual and cognitive process, but it is also social and experiential. And when we want to build these skills in our organizations, we make sure that we pay attention to culture before we make the digital investment, and that will get us ready for the next revolution ahead, which is the blockchain revolution, as I see it. So I think this is a nice moment for me to pause and give the stage back to you, Juan.
Thank you very much, Alper. We will deep dive with questions later after Jeff. So Jeff, the floor is yours now.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the invite to be here today, and I want to start with a story about something that probably most of us remember, which is our first job interview ever. For me, it was at a newspaper. It was in August after I graduated from the university. It was in North Carolina here in the US. I flew late in on a Friday afternoon, and the editor of the newspaper picked me up at the airport and they took me to lunch. After lunch, we got back into the car for what I thought would be the drive to the newsroom. But except halfway there, he pulled over to the side of the road. We stopped, he handed me a notebook and a pen, and he said, you have until 5 p.m. today to find a story, report it, and get back to the newsroom to file it. Now, that gave me 4 hours to navigate a city that I had never visited before in my life with none of the tools that we have today. Remember, this was 1995, so there was no iPhone, there was no Google Maps, there was no Uber. Thankfully, he gave me a notebook and a pen. Now, I found a story. I got back to the newsroom. I wrote it. And a few minutes before 5 p.m., I walked into the editor's office. I said, I'm done. And he turned to me and he said, that's nice. And I really thought he would have offered me the job on the spot. And it took him for what seemed like the longest minute to start what he told me next, which I'm never going to forget for the rest of my life. He said the real assignment was my reaction when I got out of that car when he dropped me off on the side of the road. He said it was the same routine that he had for every interview. Some job candidates would ask him to find them a story. Others would ask him dozens of questions. And once he said someone left never to be seen again. So we assume they were scared off by the assignment. He said that every day in this job would be different. He said there would be no syllabus, no list of to-dos. I would have to come in each morning in this job and find my next assignment. And then he said this, and this is something that has really stuck in my mind since that day in 1995. He said, you're going to cope with the unknown on a daily basis. Your ability to navigate the ambiguity will be key to succeeding in this job and any job that you're going to have for the rest of your life. In many ways, he foreshadowed what was to come 26 years later. So let's fast forward to today. This is a visualization for the typical job for a journalist, which looks nothing, by the way, like the job I interviewed for that day in North Carolina. Journalism, like every job in basically every field, is a digital job today. Most journalists today are creators in the broadest sense. I think about what I do on a weekly basis. I produce video for the web. I record audio for my podcast. I have to understand how to tell stories and design graphics and tools like Illustrator for social media. I'm my own newsletter publisher, requiring me to engage audiences. In every job across every sector of the economy, the skills needed to keep up are increasingly churning at a faster rate. This economy really demands a certain type of talent coming out of post-secondary education, which is the T-shaped individual. Now, this idea of the T-shaped individual first emerged in the early 1990s. The vertical bar of the T represents a person's deep understanding of one subject matter, history, for example, as well as one industry, perhaps energy or healthcare. The horizontal stroke of the T-shaped people is the ability to work across a variety of complex subject areas with both ease and confidence. The need for this ability is far greater today than it was even 2 decades ago, as the world becomes more complicated technologically. Let's take a task such as detecting credit card fraud. It requires skills in math and law, finance, technology, psychology, political science. There's more to being T-shaped than just having breadth and depth, however. It's also about having balance and the agility to pick and choose from a set of knowledge and skills as they are needed. Educating more people to be T-shaped in their life, however, requires us to think beyond this historical binary choice that is true in many colleges and universities around the globe today, which often sets the values of a liberal education on one side and a practical and professional education at opposite ends of that spectrum. There's so much tension I see, particularly here in the US, but even around the world, between kind of a classic liberal arts education and a practical arts education on the other side. And I think the pandemic in some ways is making it worse, as there's a scarcity of resources on college and university campuses around the world. And so that tension has only increased. Right now, I think there are two countervailing and contradictory trends in tertiary education that are enabling, but also challenging efforts to think more broadly about infusing digital skills and literacy in every corner of the economy. The first is that the old economy is out. Entire occupations are expanding and contracting at a swift pace. Even jobs in accounting, law, medicine are not as stable as they were historically. So what's happening is that students, teenagers, young adults are gravitating toward entrepreneurship programs, or what I call the 2021 version of entrepreneurship, and that's the creator economy. The creator economy really represents the fastest growing type of small business around the world. The rise of mobile phones that double as cameras, recording studios, as well as apps and cloud technology that allow anyone to produce content for a wider audience. And by the way, it's not just in my world of journalism. It's happening in music. It's happening in health and wellness. It's happening in gaming. Individual creators are supported by a network of startups and established companies at a time when trust in individual organizations, from record labels to newspapers, is falling. Many ways, like entrepreneurship did a decade ago, the creator economy is taking off among young adults because most remain unfamiliar with the jobs and careers that currently exist in much of the world. When they sift through job ads as seniors, they sound often like a foreign language to them. And these careers are familiar with, and the careers that they are familiar with, such as law, medicine, education, are changing in ways that make them less certain pathways compared to previous generations. It matters for students during school to get more exposure to what jobs look like. When they don't, they fall back on familiar majors that they think lead to jobs. And that's the other countervailing force that I see right now is not only the rise in the creator economy and entrepreneurship, but also this flight away from the humanities. Particularly, this is a trend that's happening in the US, but we're also seeing this now across the world, which has only accelerated since the 2008 recession, when most undergraduates and college students and university students started to say the number one reason to go to college or university was to get a job. So what we started to see after 2008 was this huge growth in degrees that were seen as leading to jobs: business, science, technology, engineering, math, healthcare. The problem is that even as students have narrowed their focus in picking these narrow majors, is that there's really no job out there that, in even the hottest jobs today, that are neatly packaged into what somebody learns in college. Take, for example, digital marketing, mobile development, data science. Those are all hot jobs today. They've all grown 50+% in the last 3 years. But most colleges and universities around the world can't keep up in developing programs in those careers. And it's often not worthwhile for them to do because of the speed of change in these industries. For colleges and universities, I believe there is a way to thread the needle between students who want to DIY their own pathway, create their own pathway in this creator economy, and those who want to study something at the university that leads to a job. First, rather than try to start new degree programs, I think colleges and universities would be better off pairing existing degrees with specific job-ready credentials that could unlock new types of jobs for their graduates. So for example, history graduates with data analytics, English graduates with social media, sociology and that is paired with an industry software certificate like Adobe Suite or Salesforce. Second, we should put less emphasis on the major that somebody is going to study at the university. One urgent need right now is to make what students study in college truly span all academic disciplines. Right now, I think in choosing a major, undergraduates automatically narrow their focus at a time when they need both breadth and depth. You know, so often now we're thinking of what the future of work is going to look like. And I think allowing students to be occupationally footloose is absolutely critical because the future of work is being reshaped by technology in another way. As we all know, entire industries and parts of jobs are being automated by artificial intelligence. This comes from a study that got a lot of press over the last couple of years from Oxford University, which has predicted that half of jobs might disappear by the end of the decade. And this was prior to COVID. Now, proclamations of robots taking our jobs often grab the headlines. But we all know that robots eating jobs is nothing new. Going back to the Industrial Revolution, technology has always replaced human labor as human labor moved to higher level mental tasks, which have just required more education. So in the long race between education and technology, education has always won. But it's not clear that that's going to be true in the future. So it's going to be critical for us to help young adults particularly complement rather than compete with technology by blending technical, social, and data skills to enable students to easily toggle among various jobs and tasks. What is clear from my research around the future of work is that for learners of all ages, breaking into the job market is increasingly about the skills they possess, just as much as it is about where they go to school and their specific degree and credential. In many ways, skills today are the coin of the realm in this job market around the world because they are translatable and transferable. That means no matter where you learn them, you can translate them to another context. And no matter where you use them, you could transfer them to another job. So what are those skills? Burning Glass, a labor market analytics firm that's based in Boston, tracks the labor market in real time around the world by scanning job ads. And it has identified these 14 foundational skills that are critical to unlocking millions of jobs, even in this economy. These skills are the building blocks of successful careers, and they span across a range of domains. So digital domains like data analytics, human domains like communication, and business domains like project management. These skills not only facilitate the first step into the job market, but they really gain in importance over the span of a working life. Indeed, when researchers at Harvard University looked at jobs and pay over the last 40 years, those that require both broad socialization and thinking skills have fared the best in employment and pay. Those are the jobs in the upper right part of your screen. The jobs that require social skills, but not math skills, have also grown. Those are the jobs in the upper left. It's the jobs that are rapidly disappearing are those that require neither social nor math skills that are at the bottom of this chart. So we need to really think how we include these social and technical skills embedded in and embed them in credentials and degrees. Because what's happening now is that many employers around the world don't think they're embedded in college and university degrees like they used to be, and they're continually asking for them in job ads. And I saw this so often in reporting my books in recent years, where I would sit in job interviews with recent college and university graduates, and they would be very good at reporting what's on their resume or what's on their LinkedIn profile, the bullets on those resumes. They would be able to say what they did, but they wouldn't be able to say what they learned and how they could apply that to the job that they're interviewing for. And in many ways, I think that if our universities around the world could better help students understand not only what they're learning, but how they could document that for employers, we're going to only increase the value of those credentials that we're giving to students. Really, in many ways, such approaches engage students in learning, helping them understand what they're learning in the moment, why they're learning it, and using that learning with hands-on projects and internships and co-ops. This comes from a survey of Gen Z students, those born since the 1990s, about how they want to learn, right? The most engaged of them want to be inspired to get out of bed by more than an alarm. They want to create their own syllabus for learning rather than be handed one. They want to find their mentors who will encourage their dreams rather than just be assigned an advisor. As colleges plan for what's next and search for approaches to make more of an impact in the decade ahead, they really need to understand how we are all learning throughout our lifetime. And in fact, we really have to think that learning now is not just something that happens to young people in one physical place, but it's constantly happening in short spurts, because the skills needed to keep up in any job are increasingly churning at a faster rate. And so we need to think as societies, as employers, as educators, how do we enable people to learn throughout their lifetime? Because it's really clear that that's what people want to do. They want to be learning on the job. They want to be learning in life. And they want to have access to learning beyond just the traditional 5 to 18-year-olds, or beyond even 22 or 25-year-olds, when we often thought of tertiary education being the end of it. And in many ways, I think that this is the next big wave in education around the world in how we think about learning for the future, is that it's a lifetime of learning rather than just at one time. Thank you so much for your time today, and I really look forward to your questions and comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeff. I think we can get started. Both of you have talked about automation and robots and how they will impact jobs. What are your thoughts about the real impact that you expect that automation and robots will have on the future of jobs?
Do you want to go, Alper?
Yeah, I'll go. I think it will not be any different than what we have seen with the Industrial Revolution. So at that time, the machines took over some of the physical jobs that required body strength. So it took place of either the horses or the strong people who was doing certain things. Now, I think the machines at the moment are taking over, are not on top of the physical jobs, it's taking over some of our cognitive jobs. So we're left with less redundant cognitive tasks or less redundant tasks. And I think we are invited to a place where we will use our creativity, sense making, which I see them as superhuman potentials. And it will give us, as I heard from you, Jeff, it will give us the opportunity to become T-shaped, because the upper side of the T will be enabled by the machines, and the depth that we will create, which is the vertical side of the T, will be with our expertise, with our focus. So in my perspective, it will have a positive impact. And I always get the question, will we lose our jobs to robots? And I always say, I think we will lose our jobs to people who can work with machines and robots, and they will lose their jobs to people who can work with machines and humans. So that's the hierarchy I see it, and that's the invitation to everyone for the future growth and development.
Juan, I think that it's hard to know exactly what this machine age is going to be like compared to past. I think that it's clear that over the long history of work, more education has clearly benefited people from rising technology. The problem now is, or not the problem, I think the issue that we're facing now is that with AI and with automation, some tasks of a lot of jobs, including very professional jobs, now could be, pieces of them could be done by robots and could be done in some ways better. With particularly artificial intelligence, right? I'm even thinking in education here, Georgia, a very famous story from the Georgia Institute of Technology a couple of years ago, where they had a TA, a teaching assistant that was named Watson, and students thought they were talking to a human teacher on the other side all the time. And here it was just artificial intelligence. And they ranked this teaching assistant higher than any other teaching assistant that they ever had. And they didn't know until the end of the semester that that it wasn't a real teaching assistant, right? That's a great example, I think, of jobs that for a long period have been held by humans. And so what I think, as I mentioned in the presentation now, this is not a competition anymore, I think, between humans and machines. And I think sometimes we think of it in that binary way. I think we have to figure out what are the human skills that machines will never do better than humans. What do we believe those are? And I still think we're trying to figure those out, but we know there's a lot of things that humans could do better, empathy being one of them, for example, right? And so how do we kind of focus our education system on really exercising those muscles, that ability to think, that ability to problem solve, maybe different with more empathy than machines? That to me is what we should be leaning into, rather than seeing this as a competition where we could just kind of outrun the machines, because in some cases, some jobs we're just not going to be able to outrun them at all. They're going to be totally automated. But even the jobs that we have always considered higher level jobs, I think pieces of them are going to be taken by machines. And to be honest with you, I'm going to welcome that, right? There's some things that I don't want to do anymore that will free up more brain time. I could work on my next book. I could have some more relaxation time that machines will be able to do.
Okay, thank you. Well, before we dive into the questions, I'm seeing lots of questions that are connected to lifelong continuous education, right? One thing is to talk to universities and to create that sense of urgency in the society about the importance of lifelong education. But for people who are listening and tomorrow want to, understand there is this need, what sort of piece of advice would you give them? How do you get started if you are today in a job and want to start reskilling? Is it about getting back to university?
No, unfortunately, I don't think it is. And I think the system has way too much friction in it right now. It should be easier so that at any moment in life, I could take an individual. So I wanted to learn during the pandemic more about data visualization, right? Because I tell stories. That's my job. My job is to tell stories. And I think there's these incredibly large data sets now that we're working with that are that can tell very interesting but complicated stories in a visual way. Now, if I wanted to take that at a university, I would have to sign up for a degree program in most cases with a credential that might take me 12 to 18 months, that provide me all these courses that I, to be honest, don't need. And by the way, I would have to apply for that program. I would have to wait. I would have to pay a lot of money. But there's also a lot of courses online to do this. And I could, by the way, take them starting today. And I could have a credential by next week. The problem is that credential recognized by somebody where I might want to get a job? Or how is that credential tied in with all the other credentials I already have? So what I think we need is a more seamless system that where somebody, by the way, like me, who knows exactly what skill I need, but how about for all those people out there who just say, I want that job. I don't know exactly what skills I need. So is there a map, a skills map that would show me what skills I need? Is there then a map to show me where I can get those skills? Is there then an institution that will credit those skills or give me a credential for those skills? Will I own that credential so that I could put it on my LinkedIn profile, or that an employer that I go and interview with will understand that credential and will trust that credential, some sort of verification system, right? This is where I think blockchain, for example, could have a lot of impact on education, because we would own these credentials in our blockchain, and we would own, and no matter where I earn them, they would be verified, and I could showcase them to any employer out there. That to me is the dream of the system that I see. That is definitely not the system that we have today. And I think it requires employers, learning providers, traditional colleges and universities working together to reduce that friction.
I think I want to build on what you say, Jeff. Being in the university system, we are a little bit on the, let's say, leading edge and experimentation side. But what makes the universities unique and the good intention of quality assurance, which is provided by the regulators and accreditors. But the problem with that is that's already lost the focus in most places in the world. I think everywhere except Europe, what I see, the traditional accreditation system doesn't look at skills, doesn't look at the capabilities or competencies. It looks at resources. So it is really real estate based. Do you have the campus to provide the courses? Do you have the faculty? So it's resources based, not the output based. Only in Europe, thanks to changes with the Bologna process, we have a output based system. So that is still a bit bureaucratic, but much better than many other places, including US. But I agree with you. I don't think we will, while the university education will still be required for maybe young people to go into the system, I don't think we will need it for everyone. And I think the biggest shift I see is moving, shifting our mindset. I think in the past, the term of lifelong learning is actually a term coming from academia. And now we don't use this term in our university because lifelong learning is somehow kind of have this connotation of learning to survive or learning to get more power. But I think we are in this age where the change is so fast. I think we need to bring the learning as a lifestyle. So we use the lifestyle learning, which is part of our life, no matter what happens, and you keep up with change with that mindset, with the growth mindset. And yes, and something like blockchain is going to revolutionize anything we have, because especially any organization, any institutions that are providing trust. At the moment, universities are there, and at the moment, the accreditors are in that space. So the blockchain will replace that, because in this moment in time, when you have a credential like a diploma, you never own it. Whenever you need your diploma, you have to go back to your university, and you just have a piece of paper, but the university still owns your credential. We own this credential, and in the blockchain, as you very nicely described, we will be able to own these credentials. And I think all the universities and all the middle institutions will be disrupted with that, and we need to completely redesign and adapt our business models. And we can talk about this. I think there are questions about metaverse and everything. I think that also leads to that.
Yeah.
But I think this is a huge revolution, and it's not too far.
Okay, I mean, there are a couple of questions that I think just to follow up on both your answers now. people are interested in learning about platforms, frameworks, or places to go to get started. I mean, is there any specific recommendation?
Well, I think platforms, there are platforms out there, right? There are, LinkedIn Learning and, Coursera and edX and places like that, where there's a lot of free coursework. The problem is, I think we're in the very early stages of, I love how Alper said, lifestyle learning. I call it continual learning, right? Because I don't love the term lifelong learning either, right? The thing that I always thought we thought of as learning was episodic, right? The phrase always is, I'm going to go back to school to get something, right? Or I'm going to school. So we always thought of learning as episodes in our life that there was interspersed with working or living. Now I think it is continual. And the problem is that there isn't a general platform because there's no trusted platform. Again, for those, I think we're in the early stages of this. I also think it's really aimed at people who already have education and kind of know what they want, right? So it's really aimed at like that very sophisticated education consumer. What we need to do are build platforms for people who either don't know what they want or don't even have some of the basic levels of education, right? Here in the US, for example, we have more than 30 million people who have started college and haven't finished, right? They have some college and university credit, but they don't have any credential. Those are people, to be honest with you, that don't always know what they want to do next. And the education experience that they had wasn't very good for them, right? How do we re-engage them? Because we have to re-engage them in this new economy. That to me requires some sort of platform. Who builds that is a really big question. And when we were all together this summer, that was one of the questions that we talked about. Could that be a managed marketplace, for example, where you have like a Airbnb type of thing or a Amazon type of thing where all these players are building on top of this platform? Those could be education companies. Those could be universities. Those could be employers building on top of this, curated in a way so that, again, whether I'm a sophisticated education customer or a less sophisticated education customer, I could come to that platform, discover what I need to get to that next spot, fill the gap in with education, and by the way, then get that credential that is so critical.
I think Juan here, thank you, Jeff. I think I want to build on what you say, Jeff. One of the mistakes that we continue to do, which was, I think, the missing point in the traditional university system. This whole assumption is the learning is something individual and it takes in our minds only cognitive. But we know by theory and practice, it is beyond that. It is not only individual and cognitive, but it's also, it has a social element. So you learn in a community setting, but it has to be also experiential. So what we have done, we replicated this masculine engineered version of education into the technology, but we kept repeating the same mistake. So, and for me, most of the platforms we have are just enhanced version of what we've got in the universities. So my question is, how can we find learning communities that actually enables us to learn and practice and experiment and build all these skills into capabilities where we are not alone, we're learning together. So this is, for example, we're experimenting with our university in that sense. So, but I think we should be looking at the learning communities beyond the platforms. Platforms for me are the textbooks that we used to have in the universities. They are the enhanced textbooks with audiovisual capabilities. But you cannot get a skill from a textbook. And this is exactly the same. So yeah, you just get these skills by a community of practice where you learn together. So this is, I think that this is the challenge. And we don't have that at the moment in big scale, large scale.
Okay, thank you. Well, I mean, I think I don't know if it was Jeff or Alper talking about one of the questions on the metaverse. Let's go for it. How do you see the metaverse will it be a new model of a wealth generation business? And do we need to rethink and practice for the metaversion skills?
I'm going to let Al take that one.
Okay. Well, can I be provocative?
Absolutely.
All right. Okay. I think I think from a marketing side, it is from a marketing messaging. Yeah, it's a nice. It has nice messages. It's appealing. I think from a technology perspective, I think what we're talking in the metaverse is a transitionary technology. So I think we will go beyond that. But what I want to say, in the light of what we've talked about, distributed ledger technologies and blockchain, any business model that at the moment provides their users as products, like Facebook, like Google, will be fully disrupted, and they will be fully challenged. And eventually, if they don't change their business model, they will go out of business in the age of blockchain. So whatever it doesn't matter whether you are Google or Metaverse, but that change coming ahead is going to challenge all these business models. So I think, to me, there is a much bigger threat or disruption ahead beyond these small, makeup type of changes in the business model. That's what I would say, and that applies to the universities as well.
Okay. Jeff, do you want to add anything there, or?
I'm going to skip out on the metaverse.
Okay. There's also a question on quantum computing. Is it going to be a game? Well, I mean, I'm just translating. How do you think, if at all, that all digital skills, blockchain, and so on, may be affected by quantum computing that is about to become a reality?
So, how will they be affected by the quantum computing? Is that how we should get the question? Yeah. Jeff, you want to start, or should I? I'll go. I think, yeah, for me, there are two things. One is, I think the quantum computing is the infrastructure and the underlying foundation of all these skills, and anything runs on these skills. So what I anticipate with the quantum computing is, with the computing power, most of the things that are now manually done or done by machine learning engineers or AI professionals, I think they will become much more commodity. So it's kind of like, today you have to know Python to become a data scientist, but lots of things that you do with Python is, I think, in the future is going to be like using Excel. So they will be commodity skills, and the quantum computing will enable that, and it will bring it to masses, all these capabilities, and we will see a tremendous explosion of possibilities that we can do with these algorithms that can be used with no code. So that's what I can say.
Okay. Good. I think we are reaching the end time. Any final reflection? Anything else you want to add?
I guess the only thing I want to add is that I actually think this is probably I've been in and around education for more than 25 years, and this is probably one of the most exciting periods in education right now. I think that in many ways, education was kind of plodding along. They knew there was a moment coming for them, largely because of global demographics over the next decade, that were going to put a lot of pressure on traditional universities, in particular at the post-secondary level. I think the pandemic has really kind of accelerated change around the world and how we think about education, upskilling, reskilling, digital education, all these things. And so to me, the combination of, we know change was coming anyway, it has only accelerated these changes, I think is now opened up so many more possibilities for what's going to happen in the next couple of years. I'm really actually looking forward to it.
Thank you. Yeah.
I think before the final remarks, I saw a question that was addressed to me, like about the current students to be oriented with the future, which professionals that yet do not exist.
Go for it.
what degrees can be entered. I think what I see is a good entry point is if you are good with, if you're interested in coding and with good in math, I think anything about AI, machine learning, data science is definitely a safe and good entry point for the near future skills for any students. And if you get data science and AI skills, you can do lots of things being a T-shaped professional with these skills. That's what I want to say. And I think also I'm very excited about this future ahead of us. That will bring the changes that was much needed in many dimensions. It will change how we work. It will change how we learn. And it will change how we relate to each other, to the planet, to everything around us. And we will learn by doing. There are also dystopic possibilities that we cannot exclude, but I think we will learn by doing. And I have always been an optimist, and I keep for that vision as well. So I look forward to that future, and what will keep us ahead of that change is, I think, the courage to experiment, the courage to learn, and the learning agility. And so I just invite everyone, just keep experimenting, keep learning, and forcing yourself to learn and to go beyond your comfort zone with anything. Like, I'll give you a very simple example. I've been using an iPhone for many years. I love iPhone. Just for the sake of challenging myself, I moved into Android a few years ago. I struggled for a few months. It was difficult for me, but it just kept me really sharp, and it just gave me all these drive. And you can do all these small things, just learn new things every day. Learn new skills every day, so that you are agile and you're not afraid to learn.